really start to cause some upsets and try and make their way out of this group stage and into HRX. And a Hercules ban right off the bat. Hercules may have literally just scarred Trifecta from what Benji did to them with that god.
I think that's literally true, because no other team has really, it's been picked a few times outside of that, but it's Benji who has made the mark on Hercules, and it's Trifecta just don't want to deal with it. Maybe they feel Kiki doesn't have the characters to deal with it, or they don't want to learn in a best of one, which is a respectable ban. I can definitely, you know, considering the work that Hercules did against them, it's a good idea for Noble to try and pick it, and I like the forward thinking for Trifecta to ban it away.
Just an interesting first bit. Like, they didn't hesitate. They were like, okay, we get to play Smite game again. No Hercules. Like, please, God, anything but that. Hu Yi, the first ban here for Noble. It's been a lot of Guardian focus as of late, but that's just because Elevate has been playing a lot so far today. Kabrakan has been first picked a couple times during this group stage part of Super Regionals, as Cirquet is the next ban by Trifecta. If you're coaching Trifecta here, Hazer, what are you telling them to try and prioritize, just based on what you've seen them have success with?
So right now, I feel like looking at the top meta picks, you've got Artio and Kukulin both open, who I think are both really strong. You've got Osiris as well, so I think they leave everything open that they don't want to play. And you see AMC go a shot at Snoopy directly. I think Snoopy was one of the first players to pick up that AMC before he was really meta. I think he recognized something which the rest of us maybe missed, and taking that away is definitely a good idea. And it leaves, you know, the so-called OP picks open for them to get in the second pick slots. Kukulin
is on the table here. That's been first picked by a couple of teams. And Osiris doesn't really feel like a Kiki god to me, but with multiple warriors open, instead Trifecta go for what has been a very heavily prioritized pick in the Fafnir, but that leaves open Artio for Noble, which means they won't get both warriors. They'll take neither, and I like that. We're going for the Ratatosker as well. How do you like skipping both Kukulin and Osiris here, Nate?
I think it's extremely smart from Noble. They have the possibility to flex Artio to solo in case Trifecta decide to pick up both here. So they're in a very safe position, and they get to secure the very important Ratatosker. He's had a fantastic LAN. I'm pretty sure he's won almost all of his games. So I think Noble are definitely looking strong here. But Fafnir, he's a bit of a sleeper character. You don't really see his impact until you really think about it afterwards. You know, you see his stuns, you see his setup, but the work that his steroid does for putting on his team with his 2, as well as the time he baits and the space he creates, could be key here, especially for a player like Aurora, who said in his interview just now how much work he believes doing something stupid, quote unquote, and then making a huge team play off it can get you.
Love this Naja selection for Trifecta and the Morrigan. Already feeling much better about their picks and bans than I did on Wednesday. Cynosure is a guy who's come into the league and has had success on a couple of gods and has faltered on others. So going for a top 3 pick for a guy who can have so much potential like Cynosure makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's unusual we see the Kukulin slip through here. I think it's maybe something where North America doesn't value it quite so highly as Europe does, as I've seen in the game so far. But Naja and Morrigan, definitely a viable combo here. We'll see huge amounts of damage coming out from that ring toss in teamfights, and we see the Thoth locked in for Noble.
That's Moswall. That's his signature god right now. No surprise. See Noble's mid laner picking that up. When you're considering selecting the Morrigan, how important is it to have good transformation targets either on your team or the other?
I think it's amazing, and I love that Trifecta picked it here, because one of the best transformations you can do in the game right now with the current meta picks is Ratatosker. You prioritize the 2 leveling on him, which works with the Morrigan, and he's got a great ult which you can buy time and extend the transformation with, as well as allowing you to chase down kills from so far away. He's Thor, but you're not maxing your wall, you know, you're maxing a damage skill, and it's so impactful. And I love that Trifecta have now got the same map pressure that Noble do by being able to transform into Rat.
I think this is something they've maybe learned from their set against E-United. I think against E-United we saw the Morrigan and Ratatosker get picked up on the same side, and maybe they've seen Noble look for this Rat early, and they've decided to take it away from them, not let them have this combo, which devastated them when they played their games on Wednesday.
And Cynosure, it does have a great Ratatosker as well, so by picking Fafnir first, it kind of leaves the door open for the Rat and Morrigan selections on their side, but I like the adjustment that they make in case that was their strategy to go for the Naja instead. Noble with the ban priority right here. You're looking likely at the solo lane and in the hunter role. Who are some of the gods that you wouldn't want to see, Nate?
I think the Noble here should be trying to, like, we're in a weird situation where neither team has picked a hunter that they want. We're in the second ban phase and both Premier Hunters are off the table. And it's an interesting, I would have liked to see Noble ban out 2 ADCs and pick the one that they think Snoopy wanted the most and really deny what he can have. So we see the Athena ban, come out, and I guess that's a target Kiki, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's the one guy who plays Athena solo, and they're respecting it, which is a good, it's a strong move.
It's one of those sneaky, sort of weird meta picks that Trifecta really loves to pull out, and he can play it really well. Would have added plenty of CC, but you're shaking your head, Hazer.
I'm just looking at Walrus's glasses again, to be honest.
Oh yeah, that's completely fair.
I think the Athena ban is really good. It's a weird situation where both teams are looking for the same pick, bottom two, I assume, with the RTO, I think, going support. So they just get to send some target bans out of things that they don't want to pick, but they think Kiki will, into Guardians, in Athena and Emir. So I think that's smart. I don't think we would see Walrus picking either of those two up.
I think it's surprising that they're target banning Kiki here and they haven't banned the Odin. Odin is very good into RTO, it's pretty solid into Thoth as well, and they have the possibility with Hunter picks to really punish that as well. So I'm surprised that they didn't ban that out, considering how vulnerable their comp is at the moment. I
like that call. Odin would be great here for Kiki, and he's one who was really the guy in North America to bring it out. I know that you guys played a lot of Odin, Rival played a lot of Odin, mostly in the jungle. Kiki was the guy who really made it work in North America in the solo lane. So now Noble have a pick, and it's going to be Rom, which doesn't do horribly against Odin if that's where Trifecta wants to go, but it's also not ideal.
I think it's another takeaway from Snoopy as well. I mean, of course, we all know Snoopy from back in the day when he was, he was Marvels before Marvels, right? He was hitting every Ram snipe. So they've taken away the AMC from him. They've taken away the Ram as well. I like it. Hopefully they force him onto something which he can't hard carry on.
I would like to see the Izanami from Snoopy. We saw it in their set against the United, and the games weren't close, but I think Snoopy did make an impact with Izanami. I think she's got it's a fairly safe comp to pick her in, I think, after recent buffs, and she would provide the much-needed follow-up they need for Nezha, because currently the damage follow-up on the Nezha combo is very lacking, and I think Snoopy needs to pick up the slack on that and pick something that can combo off that.
That's a great point. Dark Portal, one of the most damaging Hunter ults without a doubt, and has good timing in order to pull it off of the Nezha ult. Hachiman also on the table, and we did see Snoopy play that Hachiman up against E United, though just like his Izanami pick, didn't find a lot of success, but that was all of Trifecta in that set against E United. It's Trifecta waiting for their final two picks here, likely for solo and for Hunter. Izanami and Hachiman, the two likely Hunter picks that we are talking about. Odin was brought up, but is there anything else that you think Kiki could go for here?
You still got Cucullin available. I really hope he has a Cucullin.
Trifecta actually
it has been banned. It has been banned away by them themselves. I think they must have something in mind then. Kabrakin, possibly?
I feel like the Cucullin ban does lend towards an Odin pick. He has a decent matchup against it, but it might just be the Jing Shen, so I'm going to be quiet. And
welcome to the desk, Nate. This is what it's like. I try and throw you guys under the bus, and you take the bait every time. Xing Chen has been prioritized heavily by node numbers, and Trifecta seem to have certainly looked at what other teams are having success with here and tried to adopt that for themselves. Fafnir and Xing Chen being heavily prioritized is the takeaway there for me, as Noble looking to round out their draft. Could either be a support or a solo laner here, with RTO having that flex capability still.
So looking at what Trifecta has drafted, I think that they have done their homework. They're looking at what works. They've added their own flavor with the Nezha and the Hachiman, which I think is fantastic. And what we really need to see is if they understand why these picks work, because it's all well and good and seeing a character and do well in the SPL or at LAN and then picking it, but do they understand why? And I think they do.
Amaterasu, the last pick there for Noble in the solo lane, though I suppose could still be support. I mean, your own support, Emilzy, really likes this warrior in that duo lane. What do you think about Noble's draft compared to Trifecta's? Who do you think came out on top here?
I think I slightly prefer the Noble draft this game. I think we're going to see this go to a late game. I think it might be quite a cagey early game with neither team knowing how to force themselves on the map and really pressure the other team's buffs. And I think if this goes late, the Thoth and the Ram are going to run riot.
I actually prefer Trifectas. I think I agree that if this goes late, Noble should take this for sure. But I think Trifecta are in the very fortunate position to run this game, which is not something they had against the United. They picked very low pressure and picked for late game, and it didn't work out. So I'm glad that they're in the driver's seat, and I think that they could have a good game here.
Very quickly, why do you think the Amaterasu was a selection there in that last pick, a god that we haven't seen a lot of in that solo lane?
So I think it might just be the case where they think Trifecta are going to sacrifice the solo lane, and they've gone for a kind of greedy pick there. So they wanted a greedy pick of their own, which will still win the lane slightly, but will bring them something really strong going into the mid-late game.
That's a great point. I mean, that's what Elevate is done whenever Xing Chen is in the solo lane, as Cherio just says, have fun, no numbers. We'll see you in 20 minutes or so. And Trifecta's 3v3 composition is strong, but without the having that Ratatosker ultimate, I mean, that's the best transformation here, target for Heroine in the mid lane. It is Ratatosker, and in the 3v3 sort of skirmish, that's not going to do you a lot of good.
No, so they've really got to play this smart, you know. They don't really have the greatest synergy between their picks, but they do have great early game picks, and if they play it well and bounce off and really abuse their health pools, then I think that this is it could go well for them. Now,
Amaterasu is a really good transformation target for the Morrigan, someone who has some decent healing and some good ult initiations. We'll have to wait and see. Hazer, he likes Noble. Ataraxia likes Trifecta. In this one, it's NA versus NA, and it's Finch and Taco. Take it away.
Thank you, Aggro. It is Finch and Taco. Good to see you, Taco, but what's going on here?
Sorry, I'm trying to get a hold of Walrus's mother to come and collect him, so for wearing clout goggles on the broadcast first and foremost. But it is going to be Noble versus Trifecta. I'm pretty excited about it.
And I'm excited to see Trifecta here, too. They didn't exactly get to show just how strong of a team they were up against E United. That set was a little bit rough, but I think now with this composition, they're going back to their roots.
I think that it's probably one of the more favorite things out of them, seeing the Amaterasu coming back, as well as just a refreshing change of pace. I think that Hazer is pretty correct, though. Noble as well, also pretty standard for them to take the games into much later phases.
That's right. Our desk was saying here that likely if Trifecta doesn't get off to a good start here, the Noble with that comp that's a little bit more mid to late focused could kind of run it away from them. But with the Morrigan on their team, I mean, we saw the hero Morrigan play earlier this LAN. There's anything that could happen, really.
And that's just one of the risk factors involved with leaving a pick like the Morrigan open. You know that it's in Hurriwine's God pool. You know that there's a very strong likelihood he opts for it. And what I really loved is that they also have a lot of flexibility options within their own draft with that Morrigan pick.
That's right. Morrigan lets them sort of borrow. You know, if Thoth is the one that gets off to a good start, borrow that. Or Ratatosker, they can sort of borrow that. So, yeah, maybe if something gets a little bit out of control, they can just have a little bit of it for themselves.
I'd probably have to anticipate a little bit more focus around transforming into that Ratatasker because, as the desk mentioned, you're prioritizing the level up of your second ability on that Morrigan anyway, and with Rat, that's typically the strong point for him whenever you're using that ultimate to jump into the team fight. So should be really interesting to see how Trifecta pan it out.
And the desk talked about this a little bit here, but Naja, that's going to be the jungler there for Trifecta. But they don't really have that big follow-up with it. They picked Hachiman, and he doesn't really have any kind of like big damage that comes right after that Naja.
It's been a bit of a split, actually, amongst the ADC players that we have in the arena, where it's kind of undecided as to whether or not Hachiman's actually strong or bad. And it's just so split between them because there's a lot of reasons why those that love him can really favor him. That second ability, the Heavenly Banner, just has so much clear and poke potential combining with that Eagle Eye on that first ability. Anytime you get extended range for a skill shot, it just makes so many different opportunities open up.
Yeah, it's definitely scary. And I think Hachiman, certainly no one's going to question him in that 1v1. I think he's really good like in lane, but whether or not that can kind of carry over and then have an impact for them in other areas of the match. But either way, Trifecta, Noble are ready to go here. It's a best of one between these two NA teams, and Trifecta haven't had a chance yet. So this is them chance to come out and show in groups they're ready to play.
As far as the raw laning phase is concerned, you'd probably have to favor Snoopy just a little bit more than Wowie. Wowie having those astral arrows available, going to be significantly better lane clear, at least for the first level. But Snoopy, again, that second ability, and he opted for the Bluestone, you can really tell that he just wants to try and prioritize the poke out, if anything.
Yeah, it feels like he wants to make sure that he's either winning the trade, like the poke war, as you said, or trying to give himself a bit of a clear advantage up against WoW. He's going to be able to go through those minions without a problem. Wubbin actually floating around over here on this side of the map, too, so we might see that traditional duo lane. It feels like of old now at this point, where the support and AD carries are both over here.
Everybody has seemed to kind of shift around and try out their own stuff with the 1-2-2, the 2-1-2. There's a lot of different avenues of approach when it comes to trying to establish game pacing and map pressure, but I like this start for both of these drafts, considering that the 2v2 brawl is definitely nothing to scoff at for either.
Yeah, that 2v2 is going to be strong for them. Where we're going to be seeing that imbalance, though, is between the mid and solo lane. They're letting Kiki kind of hoof it alone over there in the solo lane, whereas Walrus and Skeleton are hanging out, and then that means that Moswell's alone up against both Herwin and Sinosure there in the mid lane. So we'll see where they're able to get pressure between those two as the invade happens down here on purple.
And Aurora trying to be the lone defender of his own buff, not permitting Wowie or Wubbin to actually secure it. They were able to grab those small creeps, though, but thanks to Snoopy focusing on the lane, they've already hit level 2, and the sprint has to have been popped from Wubbin.
And that's good recognition from Wubbin. That could have potentially been dangerous. Just go ahead and get out of there so no kills happen, but that means Trifecta are free to come up and start stripping away both camps potentially.
And for Trifecta, this is a very ideal start since they were able to establish that mid lane pressure against Moswell, who I believe actually started by himself.
Right.
It just means that now Wowie and Wubbin aren't going to have their own buffs to rely on experience from.
And they did at least try and start stripping away some of that jungle did Noble on the solo jungle side. So we'll see whether or not the duo mid of Trifecta or the jungle solo of Noble, which one of those ends up being stronger. But, I mean, talk to me a little bit about this Amaterasu. It feels like we might not be seeing her until mid.
Well, the thing about the Amma is that Walrus can kind of get away with this since he's laning off against the Xing 10.
Sure.
Xing 10 can be a little bit of a lane bully, but for the Amaterasu, you're usually pretty safe in that role, and you kind of just don't really expect her to be a factor until the mid to late game, which is perfectly ideal for what Noble has already drafted.
Already rotating over is Skeleton, though, going in aggressively on the Snoopy. We saw the pings, so they knew that this one was coming out. Wubbin also taking a good bit of poke, though, from the banner being dropped down. Wubbin actually gets taken out. Snoopy gonna get credit for first blood in this game. Trifecta already getting off to a good start.
Yesterday was just the warm-up set, or I shouldn't say yesterday, but Wednesday for Trifecta, and I feel as though a lot of the players in the arena, at least from North America, that know these guys from Trifecta a little bit better, they've all been saying that isn't the Trifecta that we know they can be,
yeah.
And it really seems as though we haven't actually gotten a chance to see what they're made of.
This is going to be their chance down here in the group stages. I agree that they're better than what we saw from them on Wednesday, and they're already trying to show it up against Noble, who are no slouches themselves, Taco. That set or that game up against Energy earlier today was not easy by any means. They looked good there.
It looked like a solid start out for Noble, and considering that they nearly took a game off of Energy from that Fire Giant push, it all looked relatively positive, and now they can take what mistakes they learned from that game and bring them into this one, although I would say they have to be concerned to not get too wrapped around what Europe tends to play as opposed to North America.
And that's something that's worth considering. I think you're 100% right. Now, in this group stages, it is international competition. The rest of this tournament isn't, as Wubbin rotates in and Snoopy's happy to just jump away. These metas are rather different, and so when you're kind of moving between them, how well you can adapt on the fly for these best of ones, really, is going to be very important.
The main thing that I'm noticing as well is since Trifecta has pretty much full control of the dual lane side, I'd imagine that's where the invades are going to be coming in from. Skeleton, though, he's actually up in the air. He's looking to come crashing down, but Hurrywin's made the same transformation.
Heroin went into the Ratatosker, then he landed down up into the air from Sinosure and taking a lot of damage as a Wubbin. And the transformation from Aurora into the Dragonic Corruption. Stun comes out too. Walrus very low, but able to just barely eke it back out.
But still, red buff is just now spawning for Noble. However, I don't think they're going to be able to secure it. Snoopy lurking around the corner, not quite ready to let go of Skeleton just yet.
Yeah, Trifecta, when they realized they couldn't get a kill, tried to go find any camps that were up on that solo jungle side, but the back Harpies had just respawned, so they didn't quite have a chance to get those. Snoopy not going to be able to take the red buff that you mentioned either. So in the end, Trifecta don't get much out of it, but they do take a lot of relics on cooldown.
Already showing the threat that a Morgan can pose, though. That was an excellent initiation thought process for Skeleton. Just unfortunately able to come up short, and now Snoopy getting his ultimate forced out by some aggression by Skeleton and Wubbin.
That's part of what they like about Hachiman, though. I know you said they're a little bit on the fence, but that mountain archery, such a safe escape. You'd prefer to use it as an initiation tool or as a way to clean up a kill, but also very strong to get out.
It's the slow, really, that makes it somewhat of an ideal initiation tool, although it can be risky because then you don't have that CC immune escape that you know is going to take you far enough away from the battle to avoid any sort of damage.
And that's sort of the balancing act when you're playing Hachiman. Snoopy seems to be okay with it, though, sitting 1-0-0 got him sitting about even with Wowie, but I mean, that's scary. You let this Hachiman get off to a strong start, then Noble could have problems.
What I'm really noticing, though, is the relic usage already out of Noble. Both of their sprints had been popped, and right now from Trifecta, their soul laner actually has the teleport, and the only other guy we've been seeing with that, oh, hold that thought, though, it's Skilladon again trying to aggress onto them oracles.
And that's trying to, like you said, trying to defend these oracles. Not much came from it. In fact, Trifecta, without expending much of anything, were able to take it themselves.
That was a very smart reset there by Snoopy, just immediately falling back as soon as he thought that Skilladon was going to come crashing down.
And I want to ask you a little bit here as that fight kind of clears back out. We've seen a little bit more of teleport here. No numbers picked it up a lot. What is it that has that sort of creeping back in for our solo laners?
I think it's mostly player preference than anything else. For no numbers especially, and what Elevate has been doing with their drafts, they're mostly just trying to farm things out and then pick their team fights later on. That's kind of the same mentality here for Kiki. Speaking of which, he's ready to fight onto Walrus right now.
He forces out Walrus's ultimate with one of his own. Walrus now going to be able to safely back, and Kiki can happily just farm that wave. And I'm sure he'll happy to have a moment to breathe as Walrus has already gotten a small lead over him in that solo, thanks to some early help from Skeely.
And Noble haven't really slowed down too much in trying to find those moments of aggression, considering that they were actually the ones who got first blooded.
That's right. Despite the fact that Trifecta started off strong, Noble are still looking for everything they can get back. Trifecta have gotten themselves about an 800 gold lead, first blood bounty helping out, along with a little bit of buff control to go along with it. As up into the air this time is Herwin transforming into the Ratatosker. He's going to come crashing down on Wubbin, knocking up the bear. Already very low. Final Judgment comes through, actually getting some low health bars for Trifecta as well. Dragonic Corruption to try and lock down Skeely. They do, but they end up losing Snoopy in the 1v1.
Snoopy getting soloed by Wowie, and that is not the trade that your team wants to see unfold, considering that that would have been a huge win otherwise for Trifecta, establishing lane pressure in both sides.
Cynosure is able to go back there and take down a Wubbin, so that's good to at least make the trade in their favor, but you're 100% right, Taco. A 2-for-0 here, which is what it would have been if Snoopy had been able to back up from Wowie, would have been big. Instead, Wowie makes the big play up against Snoopy and ends up winning the boxing match.
Very unfortunate, though, for Noble that even after that fight had dispersed, Wubbin still managed to get caught out, and that's just one of those things where you can't really afford to think that you're safe inside of your own jungle, especially on a LAN event. Everybody's looking for something. Even if the fights seem so minimal, you can kind of expect that sort of follow-up chase.
And I would have liked to see it happen, Taco. Do you think between Rom and Hachiman, if we're just talking about the gods themselves, who does the 1v1 favor, especially at like this early?
In the earlier stage, Rom could certainly poke out the Hachiman enough to take him down with the Astral Barrage. It really is just all about spacing and positioning control for Snoopy in this matchup, because he should ideally win that trade since he can use that first ability, the Eagle Eye, to get those long-range auto attacks, and then the Heavenly Banner actually is a little bit further than auto attack range for its own deployment range, so it shouldn't ever really be an issue for him.
I like what we're seeing from Snoopy, though. At least now, recognizing that Wowie got that kill, he's freezing the wave, trying to starve Wowie a little bit of some farm and help him catch back up after giving that kill. Snoopy did get a kill earlier in the game, though, so losing that, falling to Wowie there isn't going to hurt him as much as it otherwise could have, as Wubbin looks to rotate in. He's been hanging around this duo lane a lot.
Another important factor to consider, though, is Noble are pretty accustomed to playing from behind. I mean, it happened earlier in their game against NRG. Speaking of which, Cyno trying to find a little bit onto Wowie, but he's just going to get the beads for now and have to fall back from that one.
And that's a good trade for Cynosure, getting those beads and only having to pay a little bit of life for it. So now he can return, and now they know that Wowie could be a little bit more susceptible to pressure from Snoopy or a gank over there in that lane.
And I never even noticed it till just now, but Wubbin's actually 2 levels behind Aurora already, so Aurora really making the most out of his team's farming efficiency. Yeah,
Aurora's, and that's something Aurora does really well. Get around the map. Sometimes you see Aurora 3 or 4 minutes into the game all the way over in solo. He just works the map very well. It's something he's always done. As again, Trifecta trying to find a little bit of a lead. They do have about a 15 or so 100 gold lead in their favor, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see them start to put some pressure on the map.
Well, now that we have hit 10 minutes, those fire elementals are no longer going to be a focal point of contest for these two teams. Instead, it's going to be Sino taking Wubben straight into the air underneath the T1 tower.
And dropping him right down, Dragonic Corruption from Aurora. Final Judgment came through, so Cynosure is going to be a little bit low, but Hurwin's looking for the Rat Part 2, stunning down Steelodon, taking out Skeelodon. Hurwin getting credit for that kill as Wubben has to back off, actually getting sashed and rooted and taken down. Cynosure gets credit for that one.
Just not the place that Walrus wanted to be. Thought that he might have been relatively safe right in front of his T1 tower, but there's just no backup that Moswell could have possibly provided without getting himself killed as well.
Yeah, Moswell had to position safely. That means it ends up being a 2-for-0 in favor of Trifecta, losing some important ones. Walrus and Skeelodon, we talked about earlier, were kind of the part that their start favored. They wanted to get a pressure for Walrus and Skeelodon, so losing those 2 kills really hurts the win condition Noble were looking for.
I think the main thing here as well for these two teams is that they both understand just how important this win is because of Energy and Elevate already establishing 2 victories for themselves.
Yeah, they've essentially just raised the bar for what getting to HRX looks like now. They're 2-0 already, so that means Trifecta knows they can't really afford to drop any games if they want to try and hang with those 2, and they might not even have been particularly expecting Elevate to be coming out this strong. They were probably worried about Dig and Energy.
For Dig and Energy, I think most people were kind of expecting slightly different performances, but either way, now that it has shapen up to look like Elevate and Energy heavily favored for Worlds, it's really just so much pressure being put onto Trifecta to ensure that they can close this one out.
Kiki So Cheeky, looking to try and take away the blue buff over here from Walrus and Skeelodon, but just not quite able to do it. Instead, he'll have to back off. Fafnir kind of lurking around, rather Aurora piloting the Fafnir over near those Oracles and getting a rotation over from Cynosure too, so they want to try and get that vision over on that side and even perhaps look to make a play.
And Hurrywin, he's level 12 now, already has that Aegis available. Moswell still trailing just a little bit behind. Skeelodon, though, he's ready for the initiation. He's looking to come down straight on top of Aurora Sino.
And instead, he ends up having to fall back. He realized there's not really much he can get from it. Moswell was there, had the final judgment available, but I don't think they felt confident that they'd be able to get the setup.
Maybe expecting Trifecta to have started pulling away at the Gold Fury, but now that they know that Skeelodon's ultimate is down and it no longer poses a threat, this could potentially be a Gold Fury attempt, if not bait.
Look at that ring bounce. That's gross damage he's able to get off on it just from that Naja. Cynosure playing this Naja very well. Already 2-0-2 right now. It's the jungle mid of Trifecta that's really gotten off to a good start here.
Oh, speaking of which, Wowie forced into those purification beads one more time. Excellent response as well from Wubben, trying to protect this Hunter as much as possible.
Aurora's the one that's going to be rooted now and trapped in that cripple field from Wubben. And the stun comes out from Skeelodon too, but able to jump away. Once again, the Hurwin transforming into the rat, knocking up the bear. In comes Snoopy on the horse, and up into the air goes Wowie to try and shoot back down. Snoopy's actually very low, dazzling offensive. That's enough. Walrus cleans it up and stuns 2 more. Really good Ama play.
That was a massive ultimate as well from Mazel, really getting the damage in, but Hurrywin able to return fire onto Skeelodon, cleaning up the Ratatasker. Instead, Noble still heavily in favor with their health bars. They might be looking for the Gold Fury. Instead, they're definitely going to claim the buffs.
Yeah, let's try and strip away the jungle is the call from Noble right now. Very big, though. They were able to get that return kill on the Skeelodon. I think if everyone from Noble's alive, then you're right. They come back and go for that Gold Fury, but realize now maybe they just got to back up, take what they can. They don't want to let this lead from Trifecta get any bigger than it already has.
And, of course, both of these teams still very on edge, although that just goes to show how much of a fight Noble can still put up, despite Trifecta having taken a bit of an early lead.
Cynosure is alone over here, trapped between a bear and a hard place. He gets taken down by Walrus, no problem. That's just another kill going the way of Noble.
And both of those rotations from Walrus just proving how much map awareness he really has, really taking advantage of the fact that Sino was way overextended in their own jungle.
Yeah, Cynosure looking to try and get some more back in the jungle after that team fight on the left-hand side, but instead just ends up giving up his own life. That's just going to further help stall some of the pressure Trifecta had, and that's what we're talking about earlier. This mid to late game might favor Noble if Trifecta can't get out to a big lead.
It's also very interesting how Cynosure's even opted for the Aegis as opposed to a Blink active for the Naja. We're very used to seeing the Naja try and be the initiating factor, so it seems as though he's relying a little bit more on Kiki Kiki or Aurora to take up that stance for him, and he can just work his way around the backline after everybody's already used those actives.
Noble now turning their eyes towards the Gold Fury, already have it at half health. Final Judgment being charged. Final Judgment was enough. Noble do take down the Gold Fury, and Skilladon goes up into the air. Actually, Herwin transforms into the Rat, but doesn't transform fast enough and gets rooted. A knock-up to get Walrus out of danger just barely in time. Herwin coming back in now and going to clean up Walrus, and he does.
He's still able to find Walrus, but at what cost? Hurrywin's going to get taken out by Wowie, and now Sino as well. The Astral Barrage is good. Aurora, though, finding Wubbin on the backside.
That's going to be a double kill now. 2 for 2 have fallen for each side. Aurora trying to lock down Wowie so Cheeky can knock him up. They don't have the damage from Snoopy, though, who's way too low. They at least forced the Aegis out of Wowie, so that's a good relic they got at the end of that.
They need to take out Wowie. Wowie has been making so much happen for Noble. Level 14. Actually, the most farm member. Oh, I take that back. Walrus is actually level 15 as well, but still 3-0-1. Been a part of 4 out of 5 kills. He is really making the comeback happen.
Especially with that ultimate cleaning up, or even not just cleaning up, but putting in extra damage. It felt like maybe like a year or two ago, we started to recognize, well, Rom doesn't just have to finish off fights. As long as he's putting out that damage from a distance, he's still having a big impact, and that's what Wowie's doing with this Rom pick in particular. But still, Trifecta getting a lot out of Hurrywind on this Morgan pick.
And very well executed target focus in that last fight for Noble. The fact that they kept Hurrywind from ulting for so long after transforming, it just kept burning out so much time that he really just didn't have enough to work with.
Yeah, he was only just barely able to clean up Walrus at the back end of that team fight. That was kind of the most they were able to get out of it. So limiting some of the impact that Hurrywind's been able to have, because he's been a monster so far. He's 4-1-1, and you pointed out correctly, he's almost exclusively transformed into Skilladon, into the Rat.
That's just what you expect to happen every single time. I mean, Ataraxia and Hazer brought it up on the desk as well when they saw that draft coming in initially. It's just so easy for a Morrigan to try and take advantage of the enemy team's strong points as well.
And what we saw happen in that last engagement, too, was that Noble have some good confirm on the Gold Fury with that big Moswall ultimate. Can Trifecta contest that kind of secure that Noble have?
With Morrigan, potentially, and I say that purely because Hurrywin could always transform into the Thoth himself, but the concern there is if Hurrywin were to transform into the Thoth, then they have to really rely on Cynosure hitting a huge ult onto a primary carry target from Noble.
Skilladon's gone up into the air, knocking up 2 members, Hurrywin as well as Cynosure, transforming though as Aurora to force them all back. Hurrywin now transforming into the Rat to try and get his own setup, but the sprint comes out. That way they don't have to worry about any more engaged. Walrus, though, actually came in on the back.
And Walrus popped his thorns almost immediately, knowing that he was going to be the target, but it's not enough. Cyno still willing to take him up into the air. Is there going to be enough damage to secure him? And there is!
Moswell cleans up Kiki, though, who took a dangerous path through the back end of the team fight. So it was actually a reverse scenario for both solo laners, as Snoopy gets stunned out here, too.
And Hurrywin just barely escaping with his life now. Unfortunately for Skilladon, when he initially went in with that through the Cosmos, he didn't have a whole lot of mana to his name, and so he just had to immediately disengage after Hurrywin expended his actives.
And really, the pathing from both those solo laners are what kind of caused that team fight to break out the way that it did. There wasn't really going to be a chance for them to come in and help Walrus for the rest of Noble, but Kiki just sort of showed up at their doorstep, so they just took him, and it ends up being a 1-for-1.
The final judgments, though, from Moswell have just come up absolutely huge in almost every single one of the past few team fights. It's clipping enough members to make them feel uncomfortable with chasing. That's probably the most important part, because Trifecta have an excellent rundown composition.
And we were talking a little bit earlier about how not too long ago, Thoth in the mid lane was kind of the pick. You kind of had to pick Thoth. And now we're kind of seeing a bit of why that final judgment can be high impact.
This is primarily a player preference as opposed to what is normally considered strong in the current meta. I think a large part of the reason why Thoth has kind of fallen off a bit lately is he doesn't provide the same sort of mid lane pressure or presence that you would normally want to look for upon buff invades and fire elemental secure. But for Moswell, he's just so incredibly good with this god that you might as well give it to him any chance he can get.
And they also have plenty of pressure elsewhere between Walrus and Skilladon and Wubbin. They kind of just need him to be that big big bang factor, really, for just follow up with that big damage for us afterwards, and that's all we need. And that's what Moswall is happy to do for me.
I don't think there's a very large amount of crowd control to help out Moswall with the setup, but there is enough a cripple factor to really cause chaos within Trifecta, and they've actually been stacking up a little bit themselves, looking to peel, because whenever a Najah ults a target, and everybody is just stuck waiting at the bottom. So Moswall, it's basically just target practice.
Well, it's kind of like we talked about. They don't have that big AoE damage to follow up on Cynosure quite the same way as they would have if maybe they'd had a different mage for him. So maybe they do have to be just that much closer to Najah to follow up, and Moswall's taking good advantage of it. So that's him recognizing where maybe the weaknesses in Trifecta's comp might be.
Well, as long as Noble keeps responding in the way that they have, this game is going to remain as close as ever. And now with the 3-man groupings in the mid lane, Aurora looking to shake things up a bit.
Walrus using that cripple field to try and deter the aggression, but it's the dazzling offensive from Walrus that's keeping Cynosure held down the back end of the team fight. Actually up onto the tree is Skilladon, thinking that fight was going to be a little bit more than it was.
I think both sides are probably expecting it to turn into a little bit more than what it actually was, but Moswall still has his ultimate, and so does Wowie, so Gold Fury contest is still possible for Noble despite having used 2 of their ultimates.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a big win. Yes, Cynosure is down without his relics, which is very important, but 2 ultimates from Noble are down. Trifecta looking to get some strong positioning around this Gold Fury, so they might be trying to force it before Walrus and Skilly are ready to go again.
There's just been so much emphasis on the mid-dual lane sides of the map that no one has even really looked at the Portal Demon. Speaking of which, Wubbin actually eating that hammer from Aurora, and now Snoopy's starting to make the rotation. 5-man grouping strong underneath this Gold Fury.
But with all this cooldown, Walrus has his ultimate available one more time, so Trifecta don't have quite the advantage that they once did. In fact, Cynosure's still 100 seconds on Beads and Aegis, so he's going to have to make sure that he's particularly careful with his positioning on the Najah, as Noble kind of say, hey, we don't think you're really going to do this Gold Fury.
If there's anything, or anyone, I should say, that Noble want to go for, it's going to be taking out Cyno from the team fight early on.
Yep.
Eliminate the largest threat to your team and make sure that your Hunter and your Mage can stay alive through the entire fight.
And a while ago, Trifecta actually had about a 2,000 to 3,000 gold lead, but that's diminished now to only about 1,000 or so. Really not anything worth writing home about. Not really anything that's going to impact their team fights too greatly. Maybe a few wards or some vision, but other than that, Noble are ready to start this Gold Fury.
And both sides kind of just toying with the others. Skilladon, though, he's ready for some action. Already up in that Ratatasker ultimate as 2 members are getting tossed around thanks to Kiki.
Wubbin's already very low, but it's Cynosure in the back who got the shell from his teammate, so he's actually going to be okay. Moswall is charging the final judgment. It goes through the team fight, but it's still Walrus who ends up falling to Snoopy. So despite the ultimate timers, Trifecta win the fight.
Unfortunately for Noble, Moswall's ult connected, but straight onto the tanks. Now Wubbin and Wowie trying to do what they can to contest. Gold Fury at 30%, getting leashed though, because it's Wowie up in the air on the Ja. Cynos are going to take him out.
That's a big target that Cynosure was able to take away. Wowie's been a big part of what Noble has been doing successfully so far. Skilladon's still here though and relatively healthy, looking to dive in on Cynosure, and he actually just gets blown up for the trouble. Snoopy getting credit for that kill as well. Gold Fury hasn't fallen yet, but they've gotten 3 kills so far.
And Wubbin thinking about pursuing that, thinking better of it though. There was still just way too many bodies from Trifecta to make that an appealing chase. And one more time, this Gold Fury trying to get pulled away by Trifecta, but Noble, they're just going to let this one go.
And this might be the right call. Trifecta now finally able to secure this big objective for themselves, going up to 55,000 gold, about a 4,000 gold lead out in front of Noble, and they've already doubled them up in the kills, 12-6. That team fight went handily their way, so much so that they're actually looking to pull Portal too.
They just keep coming so close to victory in these team fights. And Noble is actually taking a few of them themselves. Speaking of which, Walrus in a whole lot of trouble here, actually going into that ultimate pretty early, but the Portal Demon's already down.
Yeah, and Trifecta got everything they wanted there. They kept Walrus from coming in and try and contest, force out the ultimate, take the Portal Demon, just come back on, get their own farm. Now they can go back, spin that lead so they can actually start putting it onto the map. There's still a couple tier 1 towers to take to open things up, and they can start trying to force other objectives.
Oh, one important part as well is Wowie's actually opting for a crit-oriented build, it seems. Feeling pretty confident considering that no one from Trifecta is running Thorns or even any Nemeans.
That's a good call that he's making here, too. He's not going to be getting nearly as much reflect damage as has been kind of meta lately. So go ahead with that crit build. Blow up Snoopy, blow up Herwind if you end up seeing one of them with this call. But it looks like Wubbin's getting locked down the mid. Up in the air, though, is Skilladon. He does crash down the back, doesn't knock anyone up, but Sinosure looked to be his target.
This is so dangerous for Noble, though, because Trifecta just have such a strong siege composition between the Fafnir and the Hachiman. That's already two direct buffs to the team when it comes to sieging objectives.
And those two buffs were working for them strong. Now they are able to take that mid tower taken down in favor of Trifecta. So far here, they have been able to come out in the lead in this game, and they've got all the pressure right now on the map, or just Trifecta. They're the ones that can decide where these next big fights happen. Gold Fury and Portal Demon are down for a while, so it's either a tower siege or try and force a fight at Fire Giant.
For Snoopy, he's even opting into that ward chalice, just a little bit concerned about what Noble are going to try and focus as far as ganks are concerned. Skilladon has been so trigger happy with his own ultimate that I feel as though he's just been launching it every single time it's been off cooldown.
Yeah, Skilladon has been going into the ultimate and not always getting as much out of it as he would have liked to. On the other side, Herwind has been playing a really good Ratatosker despite playing the Morrigan for Trifecta so far. Every time he's gone into it, I feel like he's done a really good job of at least trading his life for one, if not turning the tides in favor of Trifecta.
Right now, Noble kind of just need to take a little bit of a breather, slow down the game as much as possible, and really permit for Wowie to get his items online, because Wowie, to me, is, again, going to be the primary comeback factor here for Noble, because he's just going to be dealing all the damage. Late game ROM is a massive problem.
And that's something they're going to have to worry about, especially if he's going this crit build. Already has that Poison Star online, so he's going to be swinging as this game continues on. So Trifecta probably want to start moving this lead into territory where Noble can't fight back sooner rather than later.
And of course, both sides just willing to take their time as far as farming out the buffs are concerned. Sino's just been swinging in between mid and left-hand tower, but as always, you can kind of just keep in mind that Noble, they're willing to brawl whenever possible.
Sinosure getting rooted. Skilladon going up into the air. As you said, he's been happy to pull the trigger. Aegis has already come out, though, for Sinosure, so he is available. Herwind also going up into the air. Skilladon rather lands on nobody, and Herwind also misses as Wowie goes up into the air.
Wowie just really launching that ultimate to create some spacing, but now it's going to be Moswell. He's charging that final judgment, really trying to make sure he can land it onto anybody, but it's going to be Wubbin, actually, who's just deleted.
Wubbin gets locked down, and Sinosure just barely makes it back out alive. Herwind now and the rest of the team are pushing in. Actually, the ult is being charged by Moswell, but he couldn't find anything with it, decides not to fire it, so instead it just goes in favor of Trifecta. Now 1 kill to 0.
And again, that's just all Trifecta. The second that Sino is able to disengage from that fight, it makes everything so ideal. They find the pick onto Wubbin, they open up the map pressure, and now Trifecta are really just free to try and engage onto Noble within Noble's own jungle.
And what Sinosure has been providing for them that's more important, the most important, has really been these max range sashes. I think in that last engagement, he actually uses his ultimate just to get away, just to get to safety. The lockdown is what's really been important from him.
Well, that's probably the primary reason we're seeing the Spirit Robe come out from Sino instead of something like a Deathbringer or maybe even another pen item like the Jotuns. He's really just trying to focus on having that crowd control reduction to ensure that he can escape those sort of situations, escape that cripple field from Wubbin, or even just the initial slows out of Walrus.
And that's what makes this team so good right now, is that they feel very flexible due Trifecta. Sometimes it's Herwind using the ultimate that initiates. Sometimes it's Sinosure with the sash. Sometimes it's Kiki. And either way, whoever isn't initiating can just focus on damage.
And now it's actually Skilladon one more time. Up in the air, but the rest of Noble not really close enough to do anything about it.
Instead, he uses it to try and knock up Kiki, who kind of doesn't care at all. They just come back over here to the Gold Fury, already have it down to half health. Moswell, though, has that final judgment, so if he's not zoned by Aurora, he'd be happy to try and steal it. Gold Fury drop for the moment as Herwind moves in forward. Dazzling Offensive has him rooted, but he's looking for the spin to win. Can't find it, though.
Herwind, though, with that Morgan transformation onto the Shing 10, he's relatively low, but that was all the time that they needed. He just wanted to zone everybody away. That's why we saw the Shing 10 transformation happening in the first place.
And there we go. Trifecta get that Gold Fury, push it up closer to an 8,000 gold lead. Now, do you think it's as doom and gloom for Trifecta in the late game if they're not ahead as we say, or do you think that they're doing okay with it for now?
Both sides have their own comeback mechanics possible. For Noble, it's primarily going to be Wowie, but speaking of which, Kiki actually ready to initiate, pulling Wubbin straight into the backline of Trifecta's team.
At the same time, Cynosure has Wowie up in the air. We said how important Wowie's been in these team fights, and Cynosure recognizing himself. Astral Barrage going up, trying to put damage on the Snoopy, more for safety than anything. Final Judgment went through, helping Walrus take down Kiki. Skeleton's low, and Wowie's already out of the fight. Even though they lost a member, Trifecta still looks stronger as Wubbin's the one taking too much damage.
But Wubbin just being Noble's punching bag. He's able to get his teammates out for it, though, and Skeleton probably more than happy that his support just sacrificed his life for him.
And it's just Trifecta, just the ones that had the positioning, the ones that had the slightly healthier health bars at the end, so they'll get to scoop up the Portal Demon for themselves. Now pushing that lead out even further. Everyone will back, everyone will come back in and try and start establishing position for Kiki.
And now Noble have to be incredibly careful with their backs because they've got to make sure to keep them stacked. They can't all back at the same time. Otherwise, that's going to be an immediate FG attempt by Trifecta.
And that's what Trifecta will do, especially with this team with Snoopy. Herwin could even transform into Wowie or another Snoopy if they felt like they needed a little more damage. They've got a lot of options here with this Morgan. That was one of the first times we saw Herwin go into Kiki to give them another initiator.
And another item that we've actually been seeing a lot out of this lane in particular is that Stone of Gaia. It was pretty prevalent for a while when it used to have that old passive where it prevented knockups, but nowadays it's mostly just being picked up for the regen.
Fire Giants at half health, and they're already forcing out the ultimate from Walrus. They drop it for the moment in response to the ultimate coming out from Skeleton, and then they just immediately were ready to follow up. Now Trifecta can just go back to pulling it again after getting 2 big cooldowns out of Noble.
And Herwin actually lurking in that stealth, trying to find a stun out, is able to capture Walrus, and instead he's going to make his own Amaterasu transformation, looking to go straight onto Mazel on the backside.
And that's to keep Mazel from contesting, but they forgot about Wowie, who's up in the air at the Astral Barrage, but they just drop it instead. Focus out Wubbin one more time. This time Walrus falls down to the ground. Herwin's low, so he's got to back up, but Final Judgment comes through. Moswell makes it a 1-for-1 so far.
But now it's going to be the 2-for-1 as Kiki's able to take out Wowie. Wubbin and Moswell both trying to get to the safety of their T2 tower, but Kiki not ready to let this one go just yet.
No, they want to try and clean Wubbin up this time, and they do. Now it's 3-for-1. Once again, make that 3-for-2 as Snoopy falls, but Skeleton's too low. Cynosure gets a double kill, and they go ahead and win that team fight 4-2.
Sprint pop just for good measure there from Trifecta to ensure that they could lock that little rat down, and Cynosure is probably just happy they were able to at least come out on top for the most part, but without both of their carries being alive, Trifecta would rather sit and wait it out for those respawns before taking that FG away.
Now, I know Noble lose the team fight, but Trifecta don't get Fire Giant. Is that in Noble's favor?
For now, it actually is a little bit more in Noble's favor, especially when you're considering the experience and the gold leads that Trifecta already have working in their favor. It's not like Noble can really do anything else other than just try and prevent Trifecta from taking a Fire Giant, because 1 FG is really all it's going to take for this game to be almost entirely out of their control.
We're 33 minutes into the game here now, Taco, so that experience lead really is, like you said, getting to the point where it won't mean as much. Skeleton and Wowie are almost level 20, and aside from that, it'll just be our supports, which don't matter too much. The gold, though, still significant as Moswell still has a way to go finishing out that build.
Typically for supports, once you hit level 15, you're basically tanky enough to be involved with just about every single team fight. This circumstance is a little bit different, though, since Aurora is in fact 17. A 3-level disparity between the two supports just means that Aurora has just a slight edge when it comes to the overall tanky factor.
And Wubbin really has been the focus of Noble so far this game. He's 0-6-7. They've been giving him a hard time on the bear because he has to be that front line for them, and they're not afraid to force him back, though. Skeleton doesn't want to let them start this Fire Giant for free, though. Going up into the air, Cynosure is the one that gets stunned out. Still not landing yet is the rat. He wants to try and knock up Herwin, and he does. Into the air as well. Looking to follow it up, but it's Moswell who finishes Herwin off.
Moswell with the 2-time snipe onto Herwin, there is just no escape from these final judgments, and now Trifecta, one more time, just going to be forced to reset it for now.
And Noble have been playing so patiently. They've been doing this defense so well. I know they lost the team fight a little while ago, but they've slowed down this Fire Giant push so much from them, Taco. Now with Herwin waiting on the 40-second push, Noble have a little bit more time to farm, a little bit more time to get these builds finished out so they can fight even with Trifecta.
This is somewhat similar to Noble's game plan against Energy. At least when they found themselves behind, they were really just, oh my god, look at Sino, he's just surrounded by everybody.
He might be in trouble, has to use the ultimate defensively. He does escape, and Aurora jumps over the wall, but I think that was enough for Noble. Now they're going to go back and start pulling the Fire Giant. Kiki's here, and he can try and defend against this. He's actually going in early. He doesn't even want to let them get this low.
But all Kiki wants to do is just keep Noble off of the Fire Giant Moswell, though. He doesn't have that final judgment. There isn't any guaranteed secure, but Kiki is incredibly low at the moment.
Yeah, Kiki's really low. Wubbin's also low. That's why we see Aurora trying to wrap around, going into the Draconic Corruption, actually forcing Skeleton to go through the Cosmos, looking to find a place for him to land. He doesn't hit anyone, but it's enough to deter the aggression. Trifecta do a good job preventing Noble from getting the Fire Giant.
He wanted that knock-up onto Aurora, but Aurora was just able to leap out in time, and instead it's going to be the pool of the Portal Demon. Moswell's ultimate is back up and running, and Walrus, he's already looking for it.
Walrus has gone in pretty deep. He's actually very low, as is Wowie, as is Walrus. A lot of low health bars for Noble Esports. That's why Kiki is going in aggressively on the backside. Snoopy has taken down Wubbin. That was easy enough. Mounted Archery going in looking for Moswell, but Moswell is going to escape.
And check out Hurrywin. Moswell has no idea, still just trying to dash away to the general safety of his tower. Walrus, though, not sure that he wants to risk it that much. Pretty tearing dash, if you ask me.
Fire Giant already very low here, Taco. Trifecta, after winning that team fight, are going to be able to take their reward. Now they've gotten their first big team fight of the match. Yes, they are up 9,000 gold, and that still does have some relevance for them as they take down this Portal Demon. And now they can start looking for these Tier 2 towers, open up this map a little bit more 36 minutes in. This is looking very different from the team we saw lose earlier as poor Skeleton gets taken down.
Skeleton had no chance of surviving once the full collapse came through, but you got to commend that dash out of the Ratatasker, just narrowly avoiding that Naja ultimate.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, just a little bit of a mental victory up against Sino. Sure knows he was able to dodge it and maybe would have survived if it had just been a 1v1, but I don't know if there are any true 1v1s in Smite anymore, man. Sometimes you just get caught out.
I don't know. Wow, we just had one earlier against Snoopy.
Oh, that's true,
Although
yeah.
It's not doing too much for Noble just yet. However, as I was mentioning earlier, this is a little bit similar to Noble's game plan earlier on in their game versus Energy, where they recognized when they were behind, and their defense is actually incredibly strong with this draft.
Yeah, Noble, and we've seen that a lot here this weekend, or this week rather. The sieges have been pretty difficult for these teams, so that's what Trifecta are going to have to transition into now, sieging. Herwin loops around the back though. Moswell already very low. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. Moswell, we knew you well. Now it's Herwin who's in trouble, backing up into the Xing Chen with that Changeling ultimate. Tier 2 falls, and already it's a 5v4.
That was the kill that mattered. Taking out Moswell out of the equation just means that Noble doesn't really have any real means to defense. It's all going to be on Wowie. Snoopy gets another one though onto Wubbin, but Wowie takes out Hurrywin in return.
And Snoopy's also very low. Good stun on the Skeleton coming out from Aurora to keep Snoopy alive. He's just turning around. He's boxing. Aurora gets credit for the kill. Skeleton falls, and now so long goes to Walrus. 4 members still pushing. They've got the Snoopy they need. They take down the mid-Phoenix, and it looks like they want to try and take the Titan too, Taco.
They still have 2 towers in the dual lane side, but that's not even going to matter. It's all up to Wowie. Can he have a repeat of that Wowie quadra kill that he did against E United? I don't think that's going to be the case here, Finch.
No, it does not look like it will. Trifecta, they may have gone down 3-0 to E United, but they